thank you so much for joining us. I have with me here MD, Mr. Mark David, and Rahul. We're going to be talking to you a little bit about the relationship between security teams and engineering teams and how that can be better to better serve your customers and make more secure software. So, to start with, MD, where does your security philosophy come from and what led to it?
It's an interesting question. I would say maybe the two concepts of curiosity and duty. And kind of goes back to my childhood. When I was growing up, my family had an Apple IIe. And one of the first things that we had was a voice synthesizer for the Apple IIe.
Oh, yeah.
And it was basically for visually impaired people.
Yeah.
And it would read documents. And what I learned was that I disassembled it and kind of found the different libraries and started making the API calls and started putting the DLLs into my own applications, my own programs.
Wow.
So what I learned from that was that the software, when you construct it, it can be used in ways that people didn't necessarily intend, the designers didn't intend. Then later on in high school, we didn't have PCs. We had a Unix system with dumb terminals. It was an HPUX, and it wasn't necessarily designed with security in mind. And if you put a bunch of high school kids together with an insecure system, you start having a lot of pranks. And so we would change each other's applications. We would delete them. We would, just cause mayhem. And from that, you learn two things. One, the attacker techniques, as well as the defensive side.
Yeah.
Fast forward to where we are today, we no longer have, we do have high school kids pranking each other, but we also have cyber criminals. We have nation state actors. And so I'm at a role, InterSystems, and we play a critical component of the critical infrastructure. And so that sense of duty of actually protecting the financial and healthcare industry, that really resonates with me and kind of is my philosophy.
I love that. And I also love that most of the people that are going to be watching this will have to go back and look up what is an Apple IIe and why did Apple not call it a MacBook at that time? And it's going to be surprising to some people, but that is pretty cool.
The Apple IIe was also, I looked this up, $2,000 when it came out. So it's equivalent of like $6,000 today.
Yeah, I was going to say, no kidding.
People had to take loans to get a computer.
That is pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, back in our day.
64K.
Yeah, this is before, we actually didn't see anything in color. It was all black and white at that point.
Green and white.
Green and white.
Green and black.
Green and black, exactly. So Rahul, same question. Where does your philosophy come from? Kind of what led you to this point?
Yeah, so mine being buried from the early stages of my career, where a simple hard code, where I thought of I'll save time and I'll come back, but I never come back. That's another story. But that snowballed into a production fire. So since then, I believe security is like a guardrail in a highway. You don't believe unless you are about to hit.
Yes.
So from then, I follow security practice as well. And with my current role, being a DevSecOps manager, I have to balance both developers and security engineers.
Yeah.
So.
That's interesting. And so as a manager of DevSecOps, it's interesting that not just as a practitioner, but also as a people leader, that's something that you have to apply. Did that change your thinking when you moved from being an individual contributor to a manager? Definitely.
So there are developers who inspired me, showing security does right thing, and it actually speeds up. So that's my inspiration, and by seeing them, I changed a lot from where I was to where I am today.
Nice. That's pretty cool. No, it's a different perspective. I think it's one thing to understand and apply something. It's a whole different thing to lead a team that's actually doing it. Cool. Awesome. Well, so now that we have our security philosophy down, the next thing that I'd like to bring up and talk about is the conflict that often arises between engineering, or the people that actually do work that makes money for us, and security that isn't always participatory or sometimes stands in the way. In my career, I've seen a lot of conflict between the two, especially earlier in my career where I was at a large CRM company that will remain nameless, and I was the security person that just bombed the security team with like a bunch of phishing emails, thinking I was going to find out if they were good at fishing or not,
Yeah.
ended up causing them a lot of problems, and the engineering teams were not excited. But I learned that that conflict doesn't have to exist, but it's definitely there. Have you experienced conflict like that between security and engineering?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. So there are conflicts. So developers shouldn't feel security as a roadblocks, right? I mean, if they feel them as a roadblocks, I mean, we cannot move forward.
Yeah.
So I believe, for developers' point of view, security should be considered as an insurance for their work. Mm-hmm. The sooner they involve security, the less rework and the less weekend work.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. The less you get woken up in the middle of the night for something. Yeah.
And vice versa. For the security engineers, the tools or the policies they put in on the developers or the pipelines, whatever the platform is, it shouldn't feel like a tax. Mm-hmm. It should feel like a power-ups. If it feels like a tax, people or the developers will ask for excuses.
Yeah.
Whereas if it feels like a power-ups, I think they just adopt it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same question. First of all, have you ever seen conflict between security and engineering, or am I way off on that?
You're way off. Definitely way off.
Okay, that's only been from me.
It's your personality. You're a little abrasive.
It's my
sometimes.
sunny disposition that they really don't like.
No, it's interesting. I find that in the last 5 years, people are coming out of school. They're starting to understand security is pervasive. It's everyone's job. But the one thing that I find that we still struggle over is permissions, credentials, entitlements, and how much permission do people get in the environments. InterSystems, we traditionally have a database that's been delivered on-prem. Mm-hmm. We are now moving to a SaaS model where we're hosting everything and also ramping up our managed services. Yeah. So our development team has been used to having admin privileges to the build systems, to all the QD systems, all the tests. Yeah. And so whenever there's a problem, they can go in and diagnose it. Now, they want to have that same privileges in our build pipelines as well as our deployment and our operations environment. And they believe that if they have those permissions, they can go in and diagnose problems, fix it quicker without a lot of red tape. Yeah. And unfortunately, they're not used to operations, and so it presents risk if they have access to customer data, as well as not following SALSA for release and timelines or release processes. So narrowing that down, not just to the individual, but also the applications they're writing. So they're like, well, why do you can't stop me. I'm writing the code. I'll push it through the pipeline and get permission that way. Yeah. And so really narrowing down the credentials and entitlements is probably still the largest issue that I deal with.
None of us want to lose the privileges. Mm-hmm. I mean, the admin rights especially.
It's so easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that from a philosophy perspective, as we were talking about, like that's one of the places where I come from is that being a social worker and a Marine and a bunch of other things, starting where your client or your patient is as a social worker is kind of the way that I see those issues, is because it's not enough to just tell them, no, you can't. You also need to bring them along the journey and start where they are. Okay, yes, I understand this is where you were, this is the permission you had. Let's talk about the dangers of that, and let's talk about here's how you can still do your job, and then offering them the opportunity to kind of solution around it and see what works. But that's an amazing point. Have you won that battle yet?
No, I think the root cause is the fact that the engineers themselves take ownership of the code, and they believe that they know it better than anyone else, but they're not necessarily familiar with the operational aspects. How do we do configuration management, and that we have an entire operations team that's responsible for that, and let them do what they do, right? So
that's significant. That's going to be some fun education you're going to have to do. Yeah, but continue to work on it. So given that that's kind of where conflict lies and where you've both seen that, what is the one thing that you think security professionals should learn to ease that problem?
So security at developer speed. So that's one thing. I think developers wanted to move fast, whereas security is worried about the risks. So we need to balance both, and security is everyone's team. So it's everyone's job. Being a developer, security is your responsibility too. But security team is there to set the right guardrails and to protect the business. So that's what I believe, and I always encourage to understand developers that point of view.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I would just maybe add to that developers, or not developers, security teams need to understand that security doesn't trump all. They're a single stakeholder in the business operations, right? Yeah. Obviously, if there's a critical security vulnerability, it gets addressed in a timely manner. But if there's something that's hardening the environment, a lot of times my team will come in and want to take the hill on something that is more philosophical and a religious argument than provides any concrete protections. Yes. Yeah. And so then when we look at, okay, if we do this, we have to then deprioritize either a feature that a customer is waiting for, or maybe even a security feature. And so I think that that's the biggest problem I have with my own security team, or the biggest concern I have, is getting them to understand that we are running a business. And it's risk-based, and our customers expect us to have secure software, so that's table stakes. But we don't necessarily need to, or build Fort Knox.
Yeah, and you also don't need to be right all the time, which is difficult for security people to realize. We'll come back to that part. Well, let's flip that question around, though. What would be beneficial for engineering leadership or engineers themselves to learn? And not so much like a particular thing, but like, what is it that engineering teams could understand better about security teams that would help them?
So as I said, I think the development organizations that I've worked with have come a long way with security. I'm starting to see a lot more security champions within the organization. However, a lot of the development teams feel that they can do security themselves, and they can do a lot. But my team's there as a internal security consulting organization, because they live and breathe this every day. They're keeping up with the threats. New technologies such as AI, how's that put together? How are we going to secure it? And really escalate those questions. Don't have that pride in that we do everything ourselves, we own it. Really collaborate and use the security team as they can.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Also, you were the first one to say AI. You lost the game. I was keeping track. I was keeping score. Who's going to say AI first? And you did it. So now we can talk about it. But I was waiting for that. What about you, Roland? What do you think? So, what could we teach the engineering teams to help them?
Yeah. So I just want to reiterate our earlier discussion. As I said, so developers wanted to. If they chime security as soon as their work started, the less rework they will have in future.
Yeah.
It's an insurance for their work they're doing. So they shouldn't feel like a roadblock or something security is gating. They should feel like protecting the business. We are giving better product to the customers. So if they inherit that into their development, so it should be easy.
Yeah. I do want to push on you, though.
Yeah.
I agree with you completely that should be the way it is. But as you know, you can should in one hand and in the other hand. But how do we get there? Like, how can you teach that to the engineering teams?
Yeah, so the best practices, and that should come from the leadership and lunch and learns everywhere.
I love that. You go to them, teach them.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, I love that. That's great. Okay, and so here's the thing. In talking about all of this, the next question I want to ask is, what fight do you want to pick with other security leaders? So for me, the fight that I always pick, and I've actually did this with a couple of bosses to varying effect, is that leaders need to keep their hands off of keyboards. You're not there to be technical. You can be technical, and it's very useful to know what your people are talking about, but your hands on keyboards is not necessary and actually kind of hurts the process. And I've argued with that, a lot of people, given talks about it, written articles and things. But the point being is that, yes, it's great that you can run queries. Should you be? I don't think you should be. Am I picking a fight with you?
Yeah. You put me in a tricky situation.
Yeah, the DevSecOps manager.
Yeah, the DevSecOps
exactly
manager.
Where you sit.
So if I had to think of one thing I always don't like, or I always wanted to argue with the security leaders, is all the security policies are like 200 pages, 300 pages, where a developer can't understand. They should be in a...
Can I say AI?
You already broke the seal, so go ahead.
They should be in a developer understandable language.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And if a developer needs an attorney to go through all this, then the security is lost.
It's almost as if policies are written for auditors, not for people that are actually doing stuff. We should stop
really?
that. Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, so let's reverse the question. What fight do you want to pick with engineering leaders?
I think I would pass that to MD.
Engineering, yeah, I think it goes back to, I was prepared for the security leaders, not the engineering leaders.
The fight that I would pick with engineering leaders in particular is to get over themselves about the fact that they're technical. It's kind of the same argument that I want to have with security leaders, is if my security team doesn't understand something technical, don't hate them for it, teach them. Mm-hmm. That's the thing that I wish they would do, is just take the time to dumb something down for my engineering or for my security teams so that they can understand better why you're resisting something. And actually in the process of explaining something in simpler terms, you know it better. And that's how you kind of show that you know it better, is because you can actually explain it. So that would be the fight.
So I'd say, again, going back to the security champions and everyone else, don't try to do it all yourself. Mm-hmm. You're part of an ecosystem. You don't necessarily own the operations. Leverage the operations team. Leverage the security team. Everyone's there to work together.
Yeah, I like that. And that doesn't happen enough. Completely agree. Yeah. All right, so every time we end these things, we have to end the same way, because I enjoy this kind of fun stuff where we get to argue with each other and disagree. We're going to do security hot takes.
All right.
So a hot take that you have where you definitely want to say it out loud but don't get the chance because it's kind of controversial. So Rahul, what's your security hot take?
So my security hot take, I think we should celebrate when a developer identifies a vulnerability rather than an auditor identifies nothing.
Ooh.
So that's...
Like so basically self-calling out a problem instead of waiting for the auditors to do it. I'm going to agree with you 95%. 95%. There's 5% where I don't agree with you, only because every auditor feels like they've accomplished something when they find something. And if they don't find anything, they feel like they have to find something, so they'll go looking. So I would give them what I like, again, a very large CRM company whose name I won't mention, I would intentionally let certain things slide for an audit, so I knew exactly what they were going to find, and then they could feel good about it.
That's a good approach.
I don't believe in ethics. It was effective. Whether or not it was ethical, it was effective.
I think that gets to the point of compliance is not security, right? If you start from the top down, here are our policies, and here are
Is
our
that your hot take?
Compliance?
No. Okay. All right, because I was about to argue with you, but go ahead.
But no, you get back to, if you're just doing the CIS controls, that doesn't make you more secure. Start with the architecture, do a threat model, and go from the bottom up, and then compliance naturally comes. So my hot take.
Hot take.
Yeah, it's my hot take. It goes back to the credentials, right? It's not really lost credentials that are a problem, it's over-provisioned credentials. So it's not just the attackers you're worrying about, it's the insider threat.
Ooh, yeah.
So once you get into that, and that's the reason why we really need to lock down permissions to the least privilege.
I'd have to agree with you. And that is like perfectly aligned with my hot take, which is my hot take is that insider threat programs are a waste of time if you actually just protect your end customers from doing dumb things on accident. You'll actually protect against all the insider threat stuff, because it's just as easy for somebody to make a mistake as it is for them to intentionally do something wrong.
What about a malicious insider? And I'm going to go back to AI, something that we're dealing with right now.
Yeah.
Clogged desktop, a lot of great extensions that you can put in. The developers aren't necessarily doing the due diligence to understand what's going on. There's a great article last night about how a researcher has made an extension that will also steal your AWS credentials. And so it's back to the Trojan horse, right? And so I think AI is that new Trojan horse that people don't see it as malicious.
Right.
And so that's your insider threat, non-malicious insiders.
But see, and so I think we're agreeing with each other, and even if we weren't, I would pretend we were. Like, that's not insider threat in the traditional sense. That is actually just protecting us from ourselves. And so I completely agree with you that is sufficient to get us to a point where insider threat is less likely. There's obviously exceptions when you're dealing with a lot of money and stuff like that.
What about a state actor that is an insider?
Ooh. Oh, that's a new good one that has come up.
Yeah?
Is that people who are state actors that we won't mention getting legitimate jobs at companies. I think I'm going to have to disagree with myself and agree with you on that one. That is an actual insider threat scenario that's pretty serious.
And I think North Korea has very active campaigns in that, right?
Very active, yeah. I didn't say that. You said that again.
Sorry.
But yeah, thank you both so much for your time.
All right.
I really appreciate it. It's been great having the conversation, and I can't wait to see you again to argue. It'll be great.
All right, it's always a pleasure.
Yeah, it's awesome. Thanks.